of diverse culture, faith, gender, and color, and pledge to work for equity, inclusivity, peace, and harmony. A very good morning to one and all present here. I, Ananta Sugar, first year student of DME Media School, welcomes you to the 5th edition of the world's first 7-day hybrid international media conference, ICAN 5. This year, conference is organized by two different continents. The International Media Conference, ICAN 5, is being organized by DME Media School of Delhi Metropolitan Education in collaboration with the School of Communication and Creative Arts, Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia. I would like to take a moment and introduce Delhi Metropolitan Education to our audience. Delhi Metropolitan Education is an A-grade premier educational institute affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University, New Delhi, and approved by the Bar Council of India. DME Media School is one of the most promising media institutes in the country. It offers BA in journalism and mass communication. It is recognized as a school focused on the growth of its faculty and students through academic and co-curricular activities. ICAN 5 has come with the theme Inclusivity, Convergence and Alternative Negotiation with hashtag Communication for All. ICAN 5 has the support of 18 partners, including the International Association of Media and Communication Research Gender and Communication Section, IAMCR Gen Section, and GMET Global Media and Education Council as conference partner. Knowledge partners for ICAN 5 are Makan Chaturvedi University, Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, Vigyan Prasad, Government of India, and KSF, Keshav Suri Foundation. For ICAN 5, international partners are Institute for International Journalism, Ohio University, USA, Green University, Bangladesh, and Daffodil International University, Bangladesh. Cultural partners, Beacon House National University, Pakistan. Media partners for ICAN 5 are Amar Ujala, The Policy Times, Jai Hind Times, and the Hindi Post. ICAN 5 is powered by Asian Media and Cultural Studies Network Australia, India Film Practitioners and Research Networks, SPA, the Student Council of DME Media School, and RIM, Research and Innovation in Media, Research Cell of DME. The conference is supported by NOTO, National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. Since 2018, DME Media School has been organizing the international conference ICAN. The themes for the former editions were India and Changing Aspects of News in ICAN 1, Indian Cinema and Alternate Networks in ICAN 2, Issues of Community Agenda and News in ICAN 3, Information, Communication and Artificial Networks in ICAN 4, Inclusivity, Convergence and Alternative Negotiations, ICAN 5. ICAN 5 will witness a total of 26 sessions, including 18 live sessions, 5 hybrid sessions, and 3 physical sessions. The schedule comprises of 10 technical sessions, 3 workshops, 2 master classes, 2 plenary sessions, and 5 panel discussions. Proud to mention here that all 10 technical sessions are being chaired by women scholars representing different states and countries. It gives me immense pleasure that ICAN 5 will go live on the official Facebook page of DME for various sessions. For more information, follow us on our social media handles. We are sharing the links in the chat box. I invite Professor Dr. Amrish Saxena, Dean DME Media School and convener of ICAN 5, to give his opening remarks for the session. Over to you, sir.
I begin today by acknowledging the contribution of our forefathers who have helped in creating a world based on freedom and human dignity. I extend my respect to people of diverse culture, faith, color, and gender, and pledge to work for equity, inclusivity, peace, and other. Today is the sixth day of ICAN 5, and gradually we are reaching towards the conclusion. Tomorrow, the conference, the fifth edition of ICAN will conclude. This year's theme, as we all know, is on inclusivity, convergence, and alternative negotiations. But the core theme remains inclusivity, and this year we try to build most of the sessions on this central theme, and be it the plenary sessions or the panel discussions or workshops. In every session we have been trying to look at this central theme. And as far as the papers is concerned, there are 10 technical sessions this year, and in almost all the sessions, obviously since in any conference the scope has to be left for other areas also, if some research scholars want to contribute in some other area except the themes or not directly related to the theme, that also be accepted. And accordingly we designed different technical sessions. Two sessions are happening in the physical mode. This is the second session which is happening in the physical mode, and all the other 8 sessions have been online. And till this time, the interactions have been very lively, very fruitful, academics, research-wise, and otherwise also the interaction that has been taking place, and the chairing of the session, which again is always a focus area whenever we are organizing the technical sessions. So as we did last year, this year too, we invited women scholars to chair all the sessions, and with a slight new addition, that last year all 9 scholars were from India, and this time we decided that out of 10, we should invite at least 5 scholars from outside India to chair the technical sessions, because online has its own benefits. Physical space is actually important, but then in online we have the privilege to invite the people sitting in any part of the world. So that is how we have been able doing this, and this is the first year in a way where this conference has gone hybrid. The first 2 editions were with the physical space, first and second. Third and fourth were completely online, and this is in the hybrid mode. And as we all know that online has penetrated so deep into our working and system that we will continue this because taking advantage of the benefits of this system. So from last year onwards also, I can foresee that our conferences are going to be in the hybrid mode, but few sessions we did in a manner where we made the maximum use of the technology. We went online from our studio 62, and people joined from different locations, and that is how technologically also we have been successful in organizing the conference with a difference. And also since focus this year has been on Indian subcontinent, and again this is for the first time, and that participation has come from Pakistan and Bangladesh, which is a completely innovative thing that we are able to do this because more or less the issues in all 3 countries are the same. So we got a chance to know each other and to understand and to appreciate the issues and the problems which are there in different countries. So in this session also, I believe that session is going to be interactive, is going to be beneficial to all students, to all research scholars who are there in this session. And we have invited to chair this session Dr. Ruhi Thakur, who is a very senior researcher, academic, and also since he comes from the professional background, she has been in the industry, and that is how she carries a lot of such experience, which that she will be sharing with everybody, and we all will be benefited by that. Thank you.
I'm happy to share that journalism at the DME is the official newsletter of the Media School. This fortnightly publication covers all the major activities happening in and out of the campus. It is a student-centric newsletter carried out entirely by them under the supervision of faculty members. DME is the official YouTube channel where you can find the playlist related to all the sessions, lecture series, film festivals, and conferences. Today, we are gathered here for the technical session 8, and the theme is Films, Technology, Supported Creativity, LGBTQ, and Sexism in India Media. Today's technical session is chaired by Dr. Ruhi Thakur and co-chaired by Mr. Vishal Sahai. And now, I would like to welcome our expert for today's technical session. Dr. Ruhi Thakur is Head Associate Professor with Amity School Communication, Amity University, Noida. Dr. Lal is D.Litt and holds PhD degree in Mass Communication. She has 22 years of work experience, blend of 8 years of industry, HT Media Ltd, Purple Focus PVT Ltd, Noida Ad Agency, 14 years of teaching and research experience at Amity School of Communication. She received awards of Best Media Educator of the Year 2022 in Advertising Research from Media Federation of India. Received 5th Gyan Shri National Award for promoting talents in Hindi literature from Savitri Foundations. She received Vishish Seva Samman from BJP for delivering services to specially abled people in December 2021. Dr. Lal has 108 research contributions, 8 books, 32 research papers, 4 scopus, 1 Web of Science 19, UGC Care listed journals, 18 other journals of repute, national, international journals with high impact factors, 30 case studies, 29 paper presentations, 10 chapters in books. She has worked in 6 funded projects, MGNCRE, MHRD, Swayam MHRD, AJK MCRC, MHRD, Radio Amity, Amity MOOC project. Dr. Lal chaired many technical sessions on national international conferences. She organized workshops on research project writing and data analysis and value-added certificate courses on 21st century media skills as program director in the year 2022. She also conducted workshops on advertising research methods, qualitative research methods, campaign planning, storytelling in advertising. She is guest speaker for many universities. She is highly skilled advertising professional, academician and researcher. Now I invite Dr. Amity sir and Susmita ma'am to please welcome the guests. Now, I invite Mr. Vishal Sahai to take the technical session forward.
Thank you, Anayaka. The first paper presenter is Aditya Goswami from he is a student of Media School of DME Noida, and his topic is the study about the journey of Indian cinema.
Good morning, everyone present here. I am Aditya Goswami in front of you, and thanks for giving my opportunity. Well, I am going to present my research paper topic, the study about the journey of Indian cinema. Well, before beginning the topic, I would like to present my objective, that why I did study or I wrote this paper. Well, my first and foremost aim of this paper, to write this paper, that how cinema was initiated in India or its actual origin. And second was to attempt to understand how regional cinema made space in Indian cinema. And third was analyze the situation of the cinema after COVID-19. And my fourth was that I missed in the paper at the portrait of women, which was played a major role in the paper. So let's start with the introduction. The cinema of India is the Indian film industry which includes more than 1,800 movies annually. Sangeet, Natak, and drama companies from Madras sold the seed of cinema of India. Well, the well-known movie industry in India cinema, Bollywood, is the largest contributor to Indian cinema and it makes up nearly 20% of India's total movie revenue. A majority of Bollywood movies are musically with songs and dance. India has over 100 billion people going to movie theaters every week. Now, it is expected that by 2020, India's share of the global box office will increase from 1% to 4%. The major centers of film production in the country include Mumbai, Kolkata, and Delhi. It's a global enterprise, and films have wide viewership and fan base throughout Southern Asia, as well as over 119 countries. Then I would like to present literacy review or ROL. So first I went through the research paper by Raja Adhyaksha, the Bollywoodization of Indian cinema, culture, nationalism in global arena. The second was role of culture and media by R. Dawn. And the third was globalization and representation of women in Indian cinema by S. Pratap. The last one was I went through a landscape of expression in Southern cinema by A. Pandya. Now I used the primary method for the interpretation of data or the methodology that I conducted questionnaire containing 3 questions. And the second data I fetched from and research paper presented. So after conducting the questionnaire, I took 3 major questions that I want to show to you. The first one was the portrait of women in Bollywood movies is getting worse. So I fetched around 85 responses and basically agreed that a portrait of women is getting worse. And through this, I conducted a small case study between the 2 movies of South in cinema and East cinema. So first one was the Gangs of Wasapur and the Chennai Central. Both the movies have same base, they have conspiracy, the genre was same, and the movies full of crime and guns. But the portrait of movie I saw and I personally went through the Chennai Central was good, and the women's are in the movie played a superior role and considered as a backbone of the movie. But on the other hand, Gangs of Wasapur in women's the condition was very bad. They were sexually abused, and sometimes they used as an object. Second one was the question was remade movie about the remade movies that how they lose their essence. So around 88 response I got. Around 88 people think that remade movies actually lose their essence after remaking. Although they are financially critically success, but they didn't even to left their footprints in the minds of audience. And the third one was about the Bhojpuri film, which was a crucial center in my perspective. And around 87 response I got that the Bhojpuri movies films get a stage to shine. And around 87% said that yes, in the upcoming years, film city is about to set up in the Uttar Pradesh. So the Bhojpuri movies can get the stage to shine. So now I would like to conclude my paper. Before the pandemic in Indian cinema in flattering state, movies used to release in theaters and perform a handsome amount of collection. But the pandemic had taken this in opposite direction. Big releases were postponed, serials and web series shooting halted. Theaters were unable to screen movies and over 183 billion Indian film industry was going through its worst phase. Audience attention span has reduced and to make they were glued to 2-3 hours in cinema was not easy. Where cinema was in accruing losses day by day, on the other hand, OTT was taking its peak, has increased around 60% subscription, enormous directors shifted onto OTT platform. Well, in India, Netflix, Disney Plus Hotstar, Heroes Now, and some other 30 platforms were being watched by a massive household. There is no doubt OTT has disrupted the entertainment sector, but it gave people space to put their talents and allowed to them. And in the end, I would like to say that, however, for once, world can forget COVID, but we can't forget the experience of 70 years. So now, ma'am, these are the limitations. I face 2 limitations. most of the responses from the India, and the most of the people infused are the teenagers. And these are my reference. And with this, I will thank you.
Uh, and now the questions, and I will just my.
Thank you so much, Vishal. So, Aditya, first of all, I would like to congratulate you for your efforts for writing research paper. So, at the very start of your professional journey, in the first year you are writing a research paper, that is very good. So, I have some points with some suggestions I would rather say, which I would like to get. So, can you put your slide of objectives first? So, as you have taken the objective that how cinema was initiated in India or its actual origin. Okay, so your first objective can be obtained with the help of review of literature because this is the historical perspective of cinema, right? So, you can systematic literature review, that would be better choice to achieve this first objective. Second objective, you have taken to attempt to understand how regional cinema made space in cinema. Again, you are going through literature, right? Analyze the situation of cinema. Here, you have taken one research tool as a questionnaire and survey you have done, right? So, you need to identify what are your major objectives and what is the appropriate method or which research tool would be the best way to achieve your objective, right? So, as you have done survey, so through survey you can't achieve all the objectives, okay? So, for survey, what was the sample size? Can you go to your research methodology side?
Yes, sir.
What was the sampling technique you have used?
I said Google form with the question contains 15 questions.
What was the sample criteria?
I can't understand.
You are at a very first semester, so I can understand. But slowly you learn because you have started learning. So you need to define, right, that what is the sampling criteria, what was the sample size, what was the sample frame, duration, what was the time frame in which you have done your survey, what was the sample size, right? So these things need to mention in your methodology, and then in analysis also you will discuss that reliability क्या थी, validity क्या थी, है ना? अगर आपने कोई statistical tool लगाया है, you need to work upon. So I would suggest you rework on the paper because you have started a very good paper. Please work on it, upgrade the work, refine the work, and then go for publication. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Aditya. So the next presenter is Shiksha Ani, student of Media School, DME, Noida. Her topic is role of Hindi films in spreading awareness on social issues. Yeah, Shiksha.
So my topic is role of Hindi films in spreading awareness on social issues. Why I chose this topic? Because from recent time the impact of cinema is very popular from the beginning. And in recent times, cinema often started to show some sensitive issue to sensitize the people, such as menstruation, late parenthood, sexual violence, LGBTQ. So my objective was to analyze the impact of Hindi film in creating social awareness, to find how citizens of country consume Hindi film, to find how Hindi films are changing the perspective of people. I reviewed some literature which are also saying that Hindi films have a very big impact on people, mainly on young generation and on older also, and elder also. The methodology is that it is a quantitative research where a list of close-ended questions was sent to all participants in electronic format, and data were collected between the age group of 18 to 50 years from the metro cities people from Delhi to NCR. My research findings are I have separated some questions which I want to show to you. तो जब मैंने क्वेश्चन सर्कुलेट किए तो मेरा पहला क्वेश्चन था कि डू यू वॉच फिल्म्स बेस्ड ऑन सोशल इश्यूज. So majority is saying that yes, but when I give them options, Padman, Khulu. They both movies are on menstruation cycle, that like how the girl experienced in जैसे कि अब पिछड़ी जगहों में जो औरतें होती हैं या फिर यहाँ पर भी होती हैं, हम लोग बात नहीं कर पाते हैं, वो लोग पैड ज़्यादा यूज़ नहीं करते, इस तरह की फिल्में थी दोनों ही मेंस्ट्रुएशन पे सेंसिटाइज करने के लिए। बट इसमें हम ये देख सकते हैं कि जो पैडमैन मूवी थी उसको ज़्यादा व्यूअरशिप मिली जस्ट बिकॉज उसमें जो एक स्टार फेस था। तो हम ये भी देख सकते हैं कि सोशल इश्यूज़ की जो मूवी है वो तभी काम करे जब हम उसमें किसी मेन लीड को एक स्टार फेस को लेते हैं। एंड जैसा कि जो टॉपिक है मेट्रो सिटीज़ में भी इसमें प्रॉब्लम ये होती है कि लोग बात नहीं कर पाते हैं। तो मैंने पूछा कि क्या अगर इन मूवीज़ से आपको बात करने में आसानी हुई है, लाइक क्रिएटिंग एन ईज आर दीज मूवीज, तो मेजॉरिटी सेइंग यस। देन आई आस्क्ड हैव यू वॉच्ड बधाई हो, बिकॉज जैसे कि मैंने मेट्रो सिटीज़ ली हैं तो वहाँ पे ये वाला इशू भी बहुत है कि अगर लेट पेरेंटहुड होता है तो वहाँ पर बहुत ज़्यादा इस चीज़ को क्रिटिसाइज किया जाता है। So then I asked that are these kind of issues still existing in society? So majority is agreeing to it that yes. फिर क्या इस तरह की मूवीज सही में अवेयरनेस फैला रही हैं? तो हाँ, क्योंकि मैंने ऑब्जेक्टिव था यही जानना कि क्या इस तरह की मूवीज फैला रही हैं अवेयरनेस, तो पीपल आर सेइंग यस। क्या पर्सनल पर्सपेक्टिव चेंज हुआ है? तो देन यस, पीपल आर एग्री कि हाँ उस मूवीज़ को देखने के बाद हमारा पर्सपेक्टिव चेंज हुआ है। क्या जैसे कोई टैबू वगैरह ब्रेक होना या फिर अपने आसपास की सराउंडिंग में कुछ चेंज देखा है? तो यस, पीपल आर नोटिसिंग चेंज। देन जो ये फिल्म्स हैं क्या वो अप्रोप्रिएटली बनाई भी जा रही हैं या फिर वो सिर्फ एक एक्सेसरेट करके दिखाया जा रहा है? तो इट्स लाइक वो लोग कह रहे हैं जो एक्सेसरेटिंग वाला पॉइंट है वो सिर्फ 10.1% था, जबकि बाकी मेजॉरिटी कह रही है कि हाँ ये अप्रोप्रिएट है। Then there is an open-ended question also, a single question that your personal change in your surrounding or anything. So people, the review I got is some changes in thinking of my relative. Youth are getting more open-minded. I don't have any such specific example, but now I can talk to anyone on these things without any taboo. After watching the film Badhai Ho, I really thought that it's okay if someone has their love to express. So these are the changes experienced by people. To the second point that youth are getting more open-minded, I also want to represent those youth. As I am also a youth, and if someone asks me that this is the topic you have to research on, I will not research on it. But if I am watching it on a movie and I am interested in it, then I'll go through the whole social media to search that what the topic is saying. So yes, the movies are changing our perspective also and making us more aware of these topics. So the conclusion is that a good cinema will educate, entertain and inspire people. Cinema is very impactful and it can change someone's mind, feelings and opinions. These movies are creating large impact on citizens related to social development. Thank you so much.
Ma'am.
Thank you, Sisha, for your effort for writing a research paper. So again, I would like to give some suggestions to you. So go to your objective slide. As your title suggests, role of Hindi film in spreading awareness on social issues, right? So the variables which you have taken in your study, these are Hindi film, spreading awareness and social issues, right? So as per three major variables which you have taken, you must frame a conceptual framework. You should design a conceptual framework and then you should further go for designing of your instrument, right? So here you have done a research based on survey, only survey you have taken. And two cases I can see, cases I mean the film which you have taken in your questionnaire, that is Badhai Ho and Padman. So I suggest case study method would have better choice doing this research than survey. Because when you are asking questions from your respondent about Padman and about Badhai Ho, it may possible they have not seen the movie. And so they will not be able to answer the question appropriately. So either you go for added record test or unadded record test where you show some glimpse of the movie and then you ask question. Then it would be easier changing trends in the society. The survey you have taken, your sample size is 18 to 50. What was the criteria for selection of sample?
Ma'am, actually, when we talk about the age limit of 18 to 50, we consider them as adult and we can think that the decision they take is right. So, on that basis, if we take a lesser age than that, then we can say that maybe they are not aware of those topics, they are not well studied that.
You need to clearly define in your research what is the criteria of selecting the sample. 18 to 50 years. And then what are demographic variables, male, female, their occupation, their profession, education. These are the demographic variables you must consider when you are doing a research, especially the survey. Then your sampling technique, what was the technique? It was random sampling, convenient sampling, probability, non-probability, right? So sampling technique you must define when you are doing your research. Okay, and content analysis could have, if there was also possibility you can do, like case study आप कर सकते थे, content analysis कर सकते थे. These are the methods you can do for doing this kind of research. And second one important point I want to inform you that when you are designing your instrument, that is a questionnaire, don't mix open-ended and closed-ended together. Because there is a separate method of analyzing qualitative data, which is theoretical, opinion-based, and quantitative data. Because coding pattern is entirely different for your qualitative data and quantitative data. And if you are doing a survey, then your sample size is 120, 200, and you are asking people to write answer, your respondent will write each and everything, right? So it would be very tedious because the sample size for interview, in-depth interview, focus group interview, that is smaller sample. And survey, the sample size is always higher, more than 500, 1,000, right? So it would be very difficult to analyze both the things, qualitative data as well as quantitative data, together in one research.
The last question that was open-ended, this one, and it was not also compulsory. So it's just their choice to fill it if they.
You can't do that. There is a process of doing research. तो आप ऐसे नहीं कर सकते, फिर आपको उसका sample size अलग हो जाएगा, है ना? तो आपको ये जो है ये चीजें you need to learn. अभी तो you are starting your research journey, so you need to learn all these things. So with time you will learn. It is a very good start. I would really like to congratulate you that you have done a very good start and you will go in a long way. Thank you so much.
With the permission of chair, I want to ask one question. Because I am the student of cinema, मेरी उत्सुकता बढ़ गई आपकी बात सुन। आपने दो फिल्म्स का एक्सपीरियंस बताई हो और पैटर्न, क्या वो एडल्ट मूवी थी? ए सर्टिफिकेट के साथ है? यस या नो? बिकॉज आपने पढ़ा होगा, रिव्यू किया होगा, इज एडल्ट मूवी? यस या नो? तो सैंपल साइज में आपने जो एडल्ट को ही क्यों लिया? बिकॉज ये जो इश्यूज हैं, सोशल इश्यूज हैं, वो अगर पैटर्न को लेंगे तो वो टीनेजर्स लड़के हैं, उनके ऊपर ज़्यादा बेस्ड है। इसके पीछे कोई लॉजिक है तो उसका आप आंसर दीजिए। दूसरा, आपने जो सर्वे किया, सर्वे बेस्ड इसमें आपने सैंपल किया था, तो दूसरे में आपने मोस्टली दिल्ली एनसीआर के लोगों को इसमें लिया था। इसमें आपने एज जो वो तो बताई थी आपने, तो क्या इसमें आपने मेट्रोपॉलिटन सिटीज और रूरल इन दोनों को आइडेंटिफाई किया था? क्योंकि जैसा मैम ने भी कहा कि जो विलेजेस है हो सकते हैं फिल्म के बारे में पता ही ना हो उनको, तो क्या कितने सैंपल साइज में कितने आपके सिटी के थे और कितने विलेज के थे, इस पर अगर थोड़ा सा अगर आप उसमें नहीं बोल पाए तो आप बोल दीजिए।
सर,
आई थिंक मेरा क्वेश्चन समझ में आ गया आपको।
सर 18 to 50 ईयर वाला जो मैंने एज डिफरेंस लिया था वो सिर्फ इसीलिए लिया था क्योंकि हम एडल्ट्स को एक डिसीजन मेकर मानते हैं कि उनका डिसीजन हमेशा सही रहता है। जैसे हम उनको राइट टू वोट भी इसलिए देते हैं क्योंकि हम मानते हैं कि भाई वो लोग गलत और सही में पहचान कर सकते हैं इजीली, तो इसलिए वो लिया था। क्योंकि जो हमारे बेसिकली क्वेश्चंस हैं वो इस पे हैं कि जो सोशल इश्यूज हैं, अब छोटे बच्चों को हम ज़्यादातर सोशल इश्यूज से अवेयर करते नहीं और अगर उनको हम अपने भी हाथ पे ढाल देते हैं कि भाई तुम्हारे ये ऐसा हो रहा है इसलिए तुम लोग इस बात को ना बोलो, या हम लोग कहीं ना कहीं इस तरह की मूवीज भी हम लोग नहीं दिखाते हैं मेनली अगर हम लोग देख रहे होंगे, छोटे बच्चे होंगे हमारे पास, तो हम लोग अगर पैड का ऐड भी आ रहा होता है ना, तो चेंज कर लेते हैं पेरेंट्स, काफ़ी जगह ऐसा होता है। बाकी जो मेट्रो सिटीज़ वाली बात है, वो मेट्रो सिटीज़ ही ली है मैंने, विलेजेस में नहीं लिया है, क्योंकि जो मेरे 2 मेजर क्वेश्चन थे, जैसे कि नेट पेरेंटहुड, अगर हम विलेजेस में बात करें तो नेट पेरेंटहुड का इतना इशू नहीं है, वहाँ पे अभी भी एक्सेप्टेड है। अगर जैसे मान लिया जाए कि 2 लड़कियाँ होंगी और तीसरा लड़का बहुत बाद में है, वो लोग इजीली एक्सेप्ट कर लेते हैं। लेकिन जब हम मेट्रो सिटीज़ की बात करते हैं, तो वहाँ पर ये इशू आता है कि आपका एक बच्चे के बाद दूसरा बच्चा अगर बहुत लेट हो रहा है, तो बहुत ज़्यादा कंजर्वेटिव और क्रिटिसिज्म उसका बहुत ज़्यादा होता है, तो इसलिए मेट्रो सिटीज़ को ही मैंने प्रेफर किया।
थैंक यू। बट एक चीज़ और है कि जब हम फिल्म बनाते हैं, सिनेमा बनाते हैं, टारगेट ऑडियंस हमारे लिए बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट होती है। और टारगेट ऑडियंस के लिए अगर हम उसको एसोसिएट करते हैं 3 में, अगर हम लोग सोशल इकोनॉमिक स्टेटस के थ्रू अगर इसको कन्वर्ट करें, तो रिच फैमिली, मिडिल क्लास एंड द लोअर मिडिल क्लास। रिच का एंटरटेनमेंट का जो साधन है, सिनेमा नहीं है, टेलीविजन नहीं है, उनको छोड़ दो। पुअर अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकता, इसलिए नहीं देखता। बचता है हमारे पास सिर्फ मिडिल क्लास, और मिडिल क्लास में भी 3 कैटेगरीज आती हैं, अपर मिडिल क्लास, मिडिल क्लास एंड द लोअर मिडिल क्लास। तो आपकी जो सिनेमा जब हम बनाते हैं, तो बहुत ज़्यादा स्पेसिफाई होते हैं टारगेट के लिए, कि किस टारगेट के लिए चल रहे हैं। तो आई थिंक जब आगे इसको फर्दर आप और बेहतर करें, तो इन चीज़ों का भी ध्यान रखें। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
थैंक यू सो मच।
So now the next presenter is Avtanish Dubey and Sajid Mishra. उनका जो टॉपिक है वो है रोल ऑफ हिंदी सिनेमा इन क्रिएटिंग अवेयरनेस अबाउट LGBTQ.
Hello everybody, I'm Sajid Mishra from BJMC first year, and with my batchmate Avtanish Dubey, and we have chosen the topic role of Hindi cinema in creating awareness about LGBTQ. So why we have chosen this topic? Because nowadays people are getting open up to talk about this topic, and cinema is something which does not require any of our efforts to understand anything. We can easily consume content, and because it requires 2 of your senses. And now if we talk about it, our research objectives are how movies have made impact on people about LGBTQ, especially Indian cinema, and the scope of LGBTQ, which means any sort of opportunities coming, like filmmakers, any actors. We don't include actors who are full.
Sajid, the research objectives include to understand the thought process of people who have similar across LGBTQ films. Now the literature review. So literature review includes like we stumbled across a lot of research papers on the net, and we found out that there are many papers which are opinion based and which targeted basically the 90s cinema, where the LGBTQ community was standard as like as a medium of jokes and as a medium of comedy, and they were usually depicted as villains in that time period. Now the methodology we chose that the methodology of the research paper is that the research paper is based on quantitative and qualitative data. The research is based on a survey which has been conducted over the population of 18 years and above through Google Forms, and the study is an exploratory research. Coming to the data analysis, which is the very important part of this paper. So the first question of this of a Google form was how the issues related to LGBTQ is being addressed in films. 46.7% of the population said that it creates an atmosphere favorable for LGBTQ, and 31.7% population said that it creates friction in atmosphere for LGBTQ. So the 46.7% people said that it creates an atmosphere favorable for LGBTQ, which means that people got aware of the fact that this community has created an impact on them. Now the second question that we raised was, did the films alter your perception about the LGBTQ community? Like were the filmmakers successful in altering the mentality of the people? So 65% people said yes, they agreed on the point, and 13.3% said no, and the rest said answer. Name a film, the last question that he raised was name a film you can recall which is connected to LGBTQ community. 60% recalled Shubham is Dada Saavdhan, right? Being a film which impacted a lot of people because of its through its humorical way. And like 20% said that like they have watched films like Aligarh, Super Deluxe, Kanchana, Kapur and Sons, and the rest 10% watched Sahai and Chandigarh Reactions.
And the 20% said other films, and the 10% were who said they are not able to recall any of the films. So the limitations we faced were while brainstorming about the topic, as I said, we were close to the cinema, so we were looking for the topic like that. And then LGBTQ, how we can put it into the research. And also, one thing we have come across while researching and circulating the forms, that we come to know that still people are there who are not able to open up about their identity. Even and also while we have this, as I said, it was also a qualitative research. So I have talked to the people, and what they have said, they are just thinking they are trapped into a robot. That was their perception. And I'm just disclosing the age. He was 35, and I was not able to believe that. Is it possible that he is realizing it after so many years? So that was the point we realized, and also the limitation one was there. While we have circulated the form, people were not ready to fill it out. Also, some people just said, "Avdansh, what are you doing? This is just something which pollutes the community. It is just polluting the society." And I would like to.
So now we would like to conclude our presentation, and we would like to say that films do play a very vital role in creating awareness when it comes to LGBTQ. The present Indian cinema has very extremely beautifully described the beauty of LGBTQ. Right? There are many films like Aligarh, Super Deluxe, which have raised a lot of issues that are faced by the community as a whole. Through the data analysis also it can be said that the cinephiles of India are well aware of the LGBTQ community, and the depiction of LGBTQ has also empowered many people to express themselves. Right? After watching, like there are many films like after watching Chandigarh Reactions, especially many people came up on the net and they revealed about their identity and they express themselves. And though LGBTQ is still a dilemma for some people and at some places, but soon everyone will come over the dilemma because of the depiction of LGBTQ in cinema and because of the progress of Indian cinema. Thank you so much. And these are the references of our
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sejal and Avdansh. So very good start, very good research paper, but I would like to give some suggestions to you. Please go to your objective slide. In the objective, first objective, you have mentioned to analyze the impact that LGBTQ has made on people. Yeah. So here you have mentioned impact. That means impact measurement, how you are going to measure the impact. You must know that there is a specific method of impact measurement, impact assessment, right? Where you need to identify internal indicator, external indicator, and this process is done for a large population to measure the impact, like climate change का क्या impact है, pollution का क्या impact है. Okay, so this is a specific method. So as I went through your paper when you presented, I found that you have not done measurement of impact. So you need to mention here, okay? Effect measure कर रहे हो या impact measure कर रहे हो, you need to mention it clearly in your paper. Okay. Second thing, you have mentioned that both qualitative and quantitative data were used, but I couldn't find qualitative analysis anywhere in your paper. Survey I could see, where you have taken a sample size and done survey, conducted survey, but qualitative analysis is not presented in your paper.
We have talked to two people. As I said, I was telling the example as I said, that he was asking for some grooming tips and all that. So I was very
acts?
His experience, life experience for the
So it was open-ended question, in-depth interview, focus group interview. But that was not mentioned anywhere. Huh? So if you have done in-depth interview analysis, so how you analyze the qualitative data? What was the coding pattern? How you segregated the data, coding method आपने कौन सा यूज किया है ना? Initial codes क्या थे आपके open codes क्या थे, selective code क्या थे, exit code क्या थे, है ना? You need to identify and mention everything in your presentation, right? So what were the behavioral code अगर आपने identify किया है या आपने जो है वो social code identify किया है, so you need to mention each and everything in a proper way as a researcher. So you have just started research, so there's a long way to go. So you will learn while doing your completion of your DJMC or whatever, right? So very good start. One more suggestion I want to give you, while going through your review of literature, I found you have taken sources from 2005, 2010. So always prefer to take last 5 year or 10-year data. Don't take very old data. Because you know everything is changing, huh? Society is changing, people behavior, lifestyle, opinion, nature, mood, liking, disliking, everything is changing. And so here, movie watching behavior is also changing. So always prefer the latest data, recent data, then your research will be more appropriate. So your study will be more robust. Okay. So these are few suggestions I would like to.
थैंक यू मैम। बात मेरा संतोष ये था कि इसमें कई फिल्म और भी ऐड कर सकते थे। सबसे लेटेस्ट में जैसा मैम ने बोला कपूर एंड सन्स हुई थी, अलीगढ़ इज अ मेजर उसके अंदर पार्ट है, और आपका माय ब्रदर निखिल उस पर ये बेस्ड है। तो थोड़ा सा और रिसर्च की और ज़रूरत है, तो मैम ने इससे जैसे आपने बताया। थैंक यू वेरी मच सर। मैम यू वांट टू ऐड समथिंग सर एंड मैम, सर यू वांट टू ऐड समथिंग? Thank you, Thakur and Sejal. Now the next presenter is Sheetal Ragda. She is a research scholar in School of Journalism and Mass Communication, K.R. Maulana University, Gurugram, and her topic is the Kashmir Files, 2022, a survey analyzing the impact of movie on public opinion.
Good afternoon, everyone. The topic of my paper is the Kashmir Files 2022 movie, a survey analyzing the impact of the movie on public opinion. This militancy in Kashmir peaked in late 1980s after the Afghan jihad inspired Pakistan to capture Kashmir, and Pakistan started a big insurgency campaign in Kashmir. So terrorists started crossing LOC, and the general Muslim population of the Kashmir was instigated against the Indian rule. So in 87, since 87 it started there, and in 87 the elections in Kashmir got rigged, which fueled the anger of the youngsters who were living there. They got disconnected with the government of Kashmir, and they choose to leave with Pakistan and started crossing the LOC, where they received the guns, the ammunition, and special training in the camps. So one of the very first operations in Kashmir was JPF, which initially brainwashed the local community in Kashmir. So they also started killings in Kashmir, which from September of '89, the first person which was killed was Tika Lal Tablu, who was a lawyer and a BJP activist. And post that, from killings started, and the exodus of Pandits started in Kashmir. And this militancy has now lasted for more than 3 decades with no relief to the common people living in Kashmir. So Indian cinema in Kashmir. Indian cinema has always been obsessed with the beauty of Kashmir. Many movies have been picturized there, shot there entirely on the local people living there. So some of the movies like Kashmir Ki Kali in 16th and 70s was shot there. Jab Jab Phool Khile was shot there. Big actors like Shashi Kapoor, Joy Mukherjee, Rajesh Khanna, Biswajit, Amitabh Bachchan, all have shot their movies there, and beautiful hotels are there where they shot their songs. So one of the early in 1983, a Beta movie was also shot there, which was starring Sunny Deol, and there was a famous song which was Jab Hum Jama Honge, which was shot in Pahalgam. And the stream which we can see in the background of that song was Sheshna stream, which comes from Amarnath. And this is how over the years, the presentation has been, in Kashmir. So after the we can see in 1990s, the first movie which depicted terrorism was Nine Rosa in 1992. The story of the movie was that a female who had come to Kashmir for her honeymoon, her husband gets captured, and then how she struggles with the government and the terrorist operation there, and how she gets back her husband safely. That is the story of Rosa. So some of the other films which made with Kashmir had mixed its story. Includes Mission Kashmir, Sheen, Yaha, Fana, Kaham, Shaurya, Haq, Lamha, and Haider. So of all these movies, the ones which catered to Kashmiri Pandit soldiers was one that was in 2004 was Sheen. So this was basically an unheard movie. Not many people have seen this movie. It was a low budget movie, and the runtime was 145 minutes only, and it got released on only 20 screens. So if we compare it with Mission that got 400 screens and 151 minutes of runtime. Obviously, the movie made a lot of money than the Sheen movie. Again in 2014, Haider got released, starring Shahid Kapoor. It depicted the dilemma of a young person, Kashmiri Muslim boy in insurgency, affected Kashmir, and how he is overpowered by the state politics and brainwashed by the terrorists. So again in 2020, movie called Sikara Game, which actually depicted, which was directed by Vidhu Vinod Chopra, and it depicted the Kashmiri Pandit exodus and how they left Kashmir, how they again started living in Jammu in camps, and all this was in a backdrop of a movie of a love story of a Kashmiri couple who left the valley because of insurgency. The movie Kashmir Files. In this year, on 22nd of March, the Kashmir Files movie got released, which was directed by Vivek Ranjan Agnihotri. This movie depicted, it is said that it is based on real incidents by the director, and he has taken that 700 Kashmiri Pandit testimonies for making this movie. That led to the exodus of the Kashmiri Pandit community. So the media and the public and even political parties, they sided, some sided with the movie, some didn't sided with the movie, and some said that it is a little bit exaggerated, the events are exaggerated, and the other party, even the ruling party, which is BJP, the Narendra Modi ji, Prime Minister of India, backed the movie and asked people to watch it because it is based on real incident. So the film depicts a story of a family in Kashmir and who have 5 friends in terms of one is an IS officer, one is a police, and some is doctor and a teacher. So this movie shows exactly the exodus of Pandit, how it happened in '89, and the slogans like Ralib, Galib, Salib, that means, convert to Islam, leave or die, or one of the famous slogans which was coming from the mosques of Kashmir rally in '89 when the exodus happened was as Parliament Pakistan, Batav Rusti, Batav San. That means that we want a Pakistan that should be without Pandits but with their wives. Objective. to analyze the impact of the movie Kashmir Files on public opinion and how they perceive the conflict after watching the movie. So, for this objective, a survey has been conducted. Now, the research methodology. A simple random method for survey was used in this paper. The survey was conducted using an online questionnaire which was circulated about different age groups, 16 plus, and the questionnaire consists of 14 chosen questions, and all 17 participants of different age groups were taken from the Delhi region of Delhi NCR, and the Kashmiri Pandits were excluded from this survey so that to receive an unbiased opinion about the movie. Further, a survey was carried out for this paper to analyze the public opinion of those who have watched the movie Kashmir Files. As cinema is considered one of the most powerful tools for not only transmission of ideas, but for the influence it creates in the hearts and minds of its target audience, analyzing the audience answers using a questionnaire seems to be a likely method to be followed. So cinema intimates and engages audience with a subject and makes audience see a new world from the eyes of the presenters. So definitely the audience gets influenced with what is the subject or the plot of the movie. Even in narrative persuasion research, it has been observed that a feature film has a great impact on the attitude and ideological beliefs of the spectators, and characters in films played a vital role in such kind of effective impact.
Can you move faster?
Yes, ma'am. Start. So, and this is the discussion. So, from 17 participants were taken, and from 17 participants, first question was obviously that had you seen the movie Kashmir Files? So, 15 had seen, and the 2 were dropped out because they had not seen the movie. Further, the rest were asked 13 questions in all, and these are the answers for the same. So, the age group of the participants was that 40% was 30 to 50 years of age, 27 were 18 to 30, and 33% were from 50 to 70 years of age. So first question which was there was, do you know about the Kashmiri Pandit exodus before watching the movie Kashmir Files? So 40% said yes, and 60% said no. So did you come to know about the Kashmiri Pandit exodus after watching the movie Kashmir Files? So 60% said yes, they came to know about this issue after watching this movie. So do you think the movie Kashmir Files has changed your opinion towards Kashmiri locals living in Kashmir? So is your opinion now positively inclined, negatively, or neutral? So 53% said that they are negatively inclined. Next question was, do you believe that the movie Kashmir Files has increased your awareness about the Kashmir conflict? So 93% of persons said that yes, the movie did increase their awareness about the Kashmir Pandit issue. Next question is, do you think the movie Kashmir Files is based on real life incidents? So as we got to know that many parties were saying, some were saying that it's real incidents, some were not saying real incidents. So as the audience, they feel connected to it, and 100% replied that yes, they feel that it's on real life incident. And then 87 feels that it is not a propaganda movie. Then 93% people say that more such movies should be made, detailing the exact circumstances of Kashmiri Pandit exodus. Then 80% say that India's cinema do impact and influence our outlook towards any movie, whatever plot the movie is showing. So next is, do you think Pakistan backs terrorism in Kashmir? So 100% say that yes, they think that Pakistan backs the terrorism in Kashmir. Next is, do you think Kashmir is a part of India? So 100% people, at least in India, feel that yes, it is a part of India. But maybe the people in Kashmir might not have the same idea about this question actually. Do you think Kashmir conflict can be solved by negotiation with Pakistan? So 87% says no. Next is that 60%, silver lining here is that 67% of central government think that central government should take proactive proactive, should be proactive in bringing opportunities to the youth in Kashmir so that they stop joining Pakistan related terrorism. So, in my opinion, the still many killings are still happening in Kashmir. Not only Hindus, but also Muslims are being killed in Kashmir. And this has been happening since '89. So, when you kill people who are from a larger community, then if 2 or 3 people are killed, so that doesn't create havoc. So when you target and kill people from small community which are lesser in number, it creates a fear psychosis in them. So when a fear psychosis is created, then that is the reason why they leave them. So mostly that this happens. So right now also because the Article 370 has been moved in Kashmir and new online portal for grievances has been opened by government of Kashmiri Pandits, where they can lodge their complaints. All those who have their property at after '89, if a house was like for 40 lakh, they had to sell it for 10-15 lakh. So such grievances, an online portal has been created. So that is also the reason why now people are being killed in Kashmir, not only Hindus, also the Muslims. Next is that hybrid terrorism is on rise in Kashmir. So what is hybrid terrorism? When the the local civilians are getting involved in killings. So that is what is hybrid. They have termed that hybrid terrorism. So they are now not using AK-47 in Kashmir. They use small targets like guns and small revolvers are huge actions. They come up motorbike. They might kill a Kashmiri Pandit, or they might see a local Golgappa wala on the roadside and kill him. So this is how the situation in Kashmir is right now. And the Hizbul Mujahideen, LGBTQ, Jash, Mohammed, so all these organizations are still active in Kashmir, but they have given different names to their organization. Like Hizbul has created Resistance Front. Then there is a terrorist organization called Kashmiri Tigers. So all these are now creating fear causes in Kashmir so that the people don't settle there because the 370 has been abolished and they fear that maybe government will settle people there. So I think the solution from my side for this problem, I think from the government of India should be that there should be public consultations with a larger group of people, the leaders who are there in Kashmir, and more of youth employment activities should be given to them. And next would be that the youth connection should be there. That is the only thing that can stop them from joining terror groups. And a Hindu-phobic government might not, at center, might not work for Kashmir because then I think they'll be alienated by what is happening in the country. So if a Hindu-phobic government will come and is leading them and even talking to them, they might not be ready to listen to them. Then the government of India create a more cultural environment and let people youngsters focus on youngsters. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I request the ma'am to
Thank you so much, Shikha, for your presentation. So here I would like to give you some suggestion. As the title of your research, go to your slide. Your title slide first. Kashmir Files, a survey analyzing impact of movie on public opinion. Okay, so here you can see the major variable which you have taken. One, you are doing impact of movie. Second, you have taken public opinion. And the case you have taken specific case of Kashmir Files, right? So I would suggest conducting a survey would not be the right choice for mapping opinion of respondents, right? When you are trying to understand the impact of movie on public, their opinion, you must go for the interview. Interview, either in-depth interview or focus group interview. You need to find out who are the people, who are the experts, who can give their opinion about the movie, right? And then you should go for sentiment analysis, opinion mapping, thematic analysis. That would be better choice. To general public, you want to analyze
General public only.
that how they have taken their perspective.
Yeah.
That means you are trying to measure the perspective of people. Okay. So here public opinion, as you have mentioned opinion. So I thought that public opinion, for measurement of public opinion mapping would be better choice when conducting survey. Okay. So you have conducted survey. So how you designed the instrument? How many items were there in your instrument?
I just questionnaire.
Questionnaire.
And I used a sample, simple random method I used and took some age groups which were speaking.
How many questions were there in your work?
A total of 70 participants were there and total of 15 questions. 14 questions were there total.
Okay, so 14 items were there. How many variables you have taken? Your major variable and what were the dimensions of all these variables?
Ma'am, all were basically closed questions. And 13 out of 13, the first question was simply that have you seen the movie or not?
So that I can see that you have taken.
People have not seen the movie, so they dropped the questionnaire there only. They were not considered for the next, the other questions. So next time they went for the next 13 questions, which were taken by them. So they answered it accordingly as per the questions. We got the data from the same.
That I could see from the result that mostly frequency test you have done. But you can work on this paper and you can further expand this paper by using mixed method. Don't only go for quantitative and survey, use one qualitative method as well, where you can do thematic analysis or sentiment analysis or opinion mapping. That would be better choice. It will enhance the value of your paper and credibility of your research. Yes. One more suggestion I would like to give you, always take 3-4 objectives. You have taken only one objective in your research. Right? So always prefer 2-3 objectives to understand. And here also you have mentioned impact. When you are measuring impact, then again you need to mention that impact assessment is not done, but it is done through different ways. Right? And any theory you have applied, theoretical framework आपने बनाया? So you are a scholar, so I was expecting more from you.
I didn't have much time.
You can refine this paper. You can further extend this paper.
Yes, ma'am. I think I can do that.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am, I have a question. Again, I am the student of cinema, so how much for the 17?
I agree with it would have been more than 100 obviously.
Okay,
But ma'am, as you said that I can refine this paper further and because that will give it more. Because I actually really want to know the impact of the movie on a general public. And when you talk about public, the sample size should be large. It should be even 500 people because then only I can gauge what is public opinion. But I did because of time constraint, I took just limited sample size.
So I never 50 number is for only interview. Yes. There are interview members
Yes,
okay, ma'am. आपका जो सैंपल साइज था जितने भी आपने सर्वे हुआ उसमें मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ इसमें कितने कश्मीरी पंडितों का आपने लिया?
Sir, I had only mentioned in the slide that Kashmiri Pandit was not deliberately taken because I didn't want any biased opinion.
Okay. First of all, जैसे मैं I'm not a Kashmiri Pandit, I live in that. मुझे कश्मीर के बारे में कुछ नहीं पता। अगर इस सर्वे को मैं करता हूँ तो मैं फैक्ट्स नहीं बता सकता। इस फैक्ट्स में दैट्स व्हाई मैंने पूछा कि कश्मीरी पंडित या कश्मीरी पंडितों को लिया या कश्मीर के लोगों को लिया। चाहे मैं किसी भी कम्युनिटी में नहीं जा रहा कि चाहे हिंदू लिया मुस्लिम पे नहीं जा रहा, कश्मीरीज को कितने आपने सर्वे में लिया। दूसरा कि वो कश्मीर जो कश्मीर में रह रहे हैं अभी उनको लिया या दिल्ली एनसीआर में कश्मीरी रह रहे हैं उनको लिया।
सर कश्मीर को लिया नहीं लिया है क्योंकि I didn't want a biased opinion. What was happening with this movie was that in media many people were saying that the movies half of the comments were saying that it was bogus movie. That's the propaganda.
I agree with you ma'am,
Yeah.
but इसको आप क्लियर कैसे करेंगे कि जो ओपिनियन उससे मिल रहा है। मैं कश्मीर से नहीं हूँ, मैंने सिनेमा देख के बताया, मुझे फैक्ट्स नहीं पता, मुझे फैक्ट्स नहीं पता कि क्या इसमें जो दिखाया जा रहा है और वो कह रहे हैं कि ये सच है, तो मैं कैसे कह सकता हूँ कि ये सच है। अगर वो जब तक उन लोगों को हम टारगेट नहीं करेंगे कि जो उससे जुड़े हुए लोग हैं, क्योंकि जो जब भी हम सिनेमा करते हैं तो कनेक्टेड एंड अनकनेक्टेड लोगों से पर हम फोकस करते हैं, दोज हु आर पार्ट ऑफ इट और दोज हु आर नॉट पार्ट ऑफ इट, उनमें ओपिनियन बनाते हैं कि जो लोग इससे जुड़े हुए हैं उनका क्या ओपिनियन। तो आपका सैंपल साइज छोटा है। फर्दर ये था कि आप जब भी इसको और करें और उसमें कोशिश करें, दिल्ली के अंदर बहुत सारे कश्मीरी पंडित रहते हैं, आप उनको
Kashmiri Pandit, that's why I didn't want to take the biased opinion and that's why I excluded them from the survey. But actually my point of view, sir, was that actually what to me also this issue was never raised for in Indian cinema for me as well. So after this movie got released, some of my friends, one has done pharmacy. She was with me in school, 11th and 12th, the schooling we have done together. So she just said that I am a Kashmiri. So when she watched the movie, she said that is it what really happened? So this topic was made with such a large scale that people get to know about it. So my point of doing this, my जिज्ञासा जो है मेरी वो सिर्फ इसी चीज को लेके है कि क्या सच में ही सबको ये पता है या नहीं पता है, मतलब नॉट क्योंकि जो वहाँ रह रहे हैं उनको तो पता है ही। एज अ कश्मीरी पंडित आई नो, एज अ कश्मीरी मुस्लिम दे नो बिकॉज दे आर फेसिंग इट एवरी डे। बट व्हाई व्हाट वाज माय जिज्ञासा वाज दैट टू नो कि हमसे जो दूसरे लोग हैं फ्रॉम अदर कम्युनिटी, बी इट इज द पंजाबी, मे बी ही इज अ हरियाणवी or he comes from South India. Even when I was living in Mumbai, sir, I worked there for 3 years. So there also they don't know about much. At that point of time, they didn't know. I'm just talking about like 2010, 2011. So when they used to ask me questions that are you a Muslim? So I told them that no, I am a Kashmiri Hindu. They said that okay, we didn't knew that Hindus are part of Kashmir. So that is the reason why I wanted to do something in that perspective, to know the opinion of people in that perspective.
Okay, and that's why कि अगर ये ऑब्जेक्टिव आपका है तो मुझे लगता है कि शायद मैं इस बात से एग्री करेंगी। मुझे टाइटल है,
खासकर उसको रिफाइन भी कर सकते हैं और उसमें
टाइटल में चेंज होगा। Thank you very much. Thank you. So next presenter is Mr. Pramod Kumar Pandey, and his topic is assessing community perception regarding role of faith-based NGOs in sociological transformation. The paper with Professor Dr. Binda Pandey and Pramod Kumar Pandey.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to one and all present here. The topic of my presentation is assessing community perceptions regarding role of faith-based NGOs in societal transformation. So here, when I'm saying faith-based NGOs, I will be referring to them as FB NGOs. So, India is a place with a shockingly high number of NGOs. The last that I saw in NGO Darpan, it's a website that is managed by NITI Aayog portal. It claims that the number of NGOs currently functional in India is 1,27,000 and some other numbers. Now, these are the NGOs that are registered voluntarily in that particular portal. which means the number of NGOs that are not registered with that exact portal exceeds more than 1,27,000, which can even go beyond 2 lakh or even more than that. Even some NGOs which are in the preliminary stage and are not even registered. So in that case, the number of NGOs are so high. Now, despite that, we see that India is sliding down in various development indices. We see, falling ranks in terms of poverty, unemployment is very high, and various other social indicators. So, what exactly are these NGOs doing is something that has always been of great interest to me. So, when I was doing some literature survey, literature review, I came across a term that was called as faith-based NGOs. It was a study that was conducted in Bangladesh, and it talked about the role that religion can play in NGOs in uniting people. Now, there are two schools of thought when it comes to religion. Some people see it as, combining force, people coming together, and some see it very contentious, where there is always a race for establishing religious hegemony that leads to the kind of situations that we are witnessing these days. So in that case, it becomes even more interesting in the case of India, which is a multicultural population, which consists of multicultural population, then how such NGOs can fare in India. Now, when I was going through the literature, most of the studies that were emerging on this particular topic, they belong to those places where there is one major religion and very few other religions, and the one religion that dominates is more than 98 or 99%. In a place like India, there is mentioning of faith-based NGOs, but not a lot of studies I could see that was able to establish the role that it can play. So majorly the countries were either those that had a state religion like Islam, or the countries that have dominantly 98 to 99% Islamic population or Christian population. So, it is said that faith-based NGOs seem to have gathered a lot of momentum, especially after 9/11, bringing people together. And some other findings of the literature review suggest that even the papers suggested that it can be a good option to unify people in places where there is only one predominant population. And it also said that these kind of NGOs, they do not play a very good role in terms of advocacy, but they are good enablers. So there is something that comes to the state passes on to the NGOs, and then it is better implemented and passed on to the population. But the advocacy role remains weak. And there was one criticism that such kind of NGOs tend to become a tool for the state politics to trap people and further political hegemony. So, based on this, there were so many other findings, but I did not pay much attention to that because this is where I wanted to focus on in my study. So the objectives of my study were perception. I wanted to study the perception of the Indian citizens on preparedness for allowing penetration of faith-based NGOs in India, and comparing perceptions of the believers and the non-believers regarding faith-based NGOs in India. Now, when I passed on this questionnaire, I did not ask somebody if he's a believer or not, because it was very difficult when I saw that people were not able to find out if they are actual believers or not. So, to some extent, they were believers. To some extent, they also kind of defied the existence of God. So, I gave them a scale of 1 to 6. It was an even, number-based Likert scale that I gave them to tell if they are believers or from more believers to less believers. So the ones who rated higher than 3, I called them the believers for this particular survey, and the ones which were from 1 to 3, I called them the non-believers. So it was not a kind of binary question that was asked. Okay, so the methodology was a survey-based study. Population was Indian citizens, and I did not have a sample frame. Now, because I did not have a sample frame, I could not have gone for a probability technique, so I went for purposive technique because there was no other study also that could have given me any kind of reference, to do my study. There was also another observation that I saw. Most of the studies on NGOs, they focus on the NGOs' achievements through cherry-picked examples. So not a lot of studies actually focused on the people as such, but they were like very specific case studies. So I did not have any reference, so I just became interested in knowing what people feel about faith-based NGOs, and this was just like a pilot study, you can say, that I'm willing to work more on. So the sample size was 119 to be precise. It was not 120, and the statistical tools that I have applied are independent sample t-test and chi-square test for association. I also wanted to conduct, exploratory factor analysis, but because the data was not reliable, on Cronbach alpha value, it was showing less reliability, so I avoided showing that in this particular study, which I will be doing later. I will be probably collecting more data to make it more reliable, or see if I can make it more reliable in some other way and then conduct that. Okay, so I will straight away now come to the findings. The believers and non-believers' perception of preparedness. So the null hypothesis here was that there is no difference between the believers and non-believers regarding how prepared India is for mushrooming of faith-based NGOs for development. Here the descriptive data shows that the mean value of believers is higher in comparison to the mean value that is displayed by the non-believers. And the t-test, two-tailed independent sample t-test for this particular two variables shows that the p-value is 0.002, which is lower than what is required. So in this case, the null hypothesis is rejected, which means that believers and non-believers, they think differently regarding how prepared India is for mushrooming of these kind of NGOs. The other question was believers and non-believers' perception of factors influencing India's preparedness. In this case, we had three options that we had given. The influencing factors were people, the politics, and the multicultural nature of our country. So this is a graph that is kind of displaying the cross-table results. And chi-square test for association shows that there is no difference in how the believers and non-believers think about the factors that influence India's preparedness for imbibing such engines. Which means both the groups, believers and the non-believers, they both think alike in terms of what factors are there that is kind of going to become the hindrance for these kind of NGOs in our country. So the next one was believers and non-believers' perception of factors influencing India's preparedness. Likelihood of dominant religious hegemonies. Sorry, I think the heading is wrong. मैंने पहले से किया तो वैसे ही आ गया. इसमें मैंने ये जानना चाहता था कि ये दोनों ग्रुप क्या एक समान सोचते हैं या अलग तरीके से सोचते हैं रिगार्डिंग वेदर अगर ऐसा होता है तो डोमिनेंट जो रिलीजन है उसकी हेजेमनी एस्टैब्लिश होगी. तो यहाँ पे नल हाइपोथेसिस इज रिटेन व्हिच शोज कि दोनों ग्रुप एक समान सोचते हैं. इवन इफ दे आर बिलीवर्स और नॉन बिलीवर्स, दे बिलीव कि अगर ऐसा होता है देन इट विल बी लाइक establishing or furthering the hegemony of the dominant religious group. And then other one, it says whether majoritarian religious beliefs should dominate. Now the earlier one is what they feel कि क्या dominate करेगा. This question was more about whether it is right if the majoritarian religion dominates. तो यहाँ पे जो null hypothesis है is rejected, which means the believers and non-believers, they don't think in the same way. They believe, their perception regarding whether majoritarian religion should dominate differs. यहाँ पे अगर हम देखें तो mean value, descriptive statistics में हम देखें तो mean value for the believers is 3.91, which is kind of sliding with or siding with 5, which was the highest point in the scale, and non-believer group में it is close to 2, so which is on the lower side of the scale. So in this case, it shows that it is a group of believers that believe कि ये सही है, and statistically ये यहाँ पे prove हो रहा है कि 2 के पास जो mean value है वो कम है और जो 4 के पास mean value है वो statistically ज़्यादा है. So this was one, and now I would straight away I would just wind up just by telling the findings that people don't see our country prepared for the NGOs functioning on the basis of religious ethos. The above mentioned perception is prevalent amongst all kinds of citizens, including the believers and non-believers, and both these groups see issues with the people as the reason for choosing their response to India's preparedness, which means Indian people are not prepared for that. So they are blaming less of politics but more the people. And the second highest majority believes that in a multicultural society, it is difficult to be having NGOs working on the basis of a certain faith. And this perception is also persistent, which is statistically tested amongst both the groups, that is the believers and non-believers. Now, both the groups are also sure who will dominate in case of scenario of mushrooming of such NGOs, that is the majoritarian belief. And last, however, there is difference in how these groups feel about a scenario where there is domination by majoritarian belief via FP NGOs. Statistically, it is also proven. So that is it with my presentation now. And I wanted to apply some more statistical tests for my inclination towards quantitative, but then the data was not in like the right shape for that. So I will be doing that. And the limitations also I would like to say, I took a very broad group. I would have probably chosen a smaller group and do comparison within that I'll be doing, but I was just too excited to just think about how people feel about faith-based NGOs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So I would like to congratulate you for a very well-structured research where all the elements of the research paper they're carefully taken and analyzed in a beautiful way. So thank you so much for the presentation. I would like to give you some suggestions or whether I would like to ask some questions first, then I will give my suggestions. Okay. So as from your title of the research, I can see, as I say, community perception regarding role of faith-based NGOs in society transformation. So here you have taken three major variables, right? The first is community perception, that is your input variable. Faith-based NGOs, that is your mediating variable, and societal transformation, that is your outcome variable. So what are the dimensions of each variable which you have taken into consideration in your research?
For faith-based NGOs, these are the NGOs that are functioning, keeping religious practices at the center. Which means that in an Islamic country, if there is an NGO that is working on the basis of faith, then it is kind of providing the perks of development through Islamic ways, like taking interest or giving interest is not allowed. So they have their own ways. So that was one criteria for assessing what faith-based NGOs are. Community perceptions is a very broad term. I could have probably narrowed it down to students or probably some limited age group. So that is very broad. It was general people's perception that I was seeking. So there is no criteria as such that I have chosen for this. And societal transformation, because societal transformation, initially I wanted to focus on the economic and the social part. So the economic well-being and the social. Initially when I did that, I had put it there for the economic and societal, social transformation, but then it was not doing justice with the kind of presentation that I was making. So the data was not there related to specifically economic and social, so I put it as a general term, saying societal transformation. Because my focus was on the perception part rather than the actual outcome of...
So community perception was unidimensional, this faith-based NGO operational definition you have given that I could see, that is again unidimensional, and societal transformation is multidimensional, right? So accordingly you have to develop your conceptual framework. Then which theories you applied as per three major variables?
Except I could not trace, I said that I could not find any study that focused on something like this. Maybe
construct you must have taken into consideration. This construct you must have applied in your instrument which you designed for data collection.
I could not find. Honestly speaking, it is just something that I have done initially, and I am going to work more on it to standardize my tool, work on a theory, and then probably apply it on a larger. Because now I have an idea what people feel, so I have some hypothesis to work around. So I'll be doing it.
Because theories are the foundation of your research, and that is very important that you apply the theory, specifically the construct of the theory, which construct you have to do. So that is important because your paper is very good paper. Few of the gaps which were there, which I want to point out, so that you can enhance your paper in a better way. So you can go for a very good publication like UGC Clear or Scopus, it can do.
Also, let me suggest some book for better understanding of food construction because I've not been able to find any till date. Any book on survey construction?
You give me your email ID, I'll send you the PDF of the
Fine.
book. Where detailed analysis part is there, the theoretical foundations are mentioned, how to apply those theory in your research. Right?
Thank you very much
We'll do
for the
that.
suggestions. Thank you.
हाँ, and themes also you need to identify ना, ROL का theme जो है you need to mention in your study. ठीक है? Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now the next speaker is somebody, Shri and Krishna Goswami, and the topic is censorship or creative freedom in the relevance to the rise of OTT platforms. And I request both of you keep your presentation sweet and short. Thank you.
Greetings to everyone present here. I, Sagar Sri, with my research fellow, Krishna Goswami, students of first year DGMC at DMU Media School, are going to give our presentation on topic censorship or creative freedom and the relevance to the rise of OTT platforms. Since the time of independence, there was always a debate ongoing about how much freedom should be given and how much.
Sorry for interrupting, but the very first thing I want to point out here that in the title you can't use or. Okay? Your title is censorship or creative freedom. These are two different variables, right? And two different variables you are thinking with or. Either censorship or creative freedom. These two are very different variables where the dimensions, angles will be different. And the theoretical perspective will be different. So always keep in mind when you are designing, formulating your title, and don't use or. Okay, censorship or creative freedom. Take either censorship or creative. And yes, take both the variables together. And censorship and creative freedom. Then you have to study both the things.
But that's what was our goal. Censorship and creative freedom with different types.
That may be typo error if you have studied both the variables.
Since the time of independence, there was always a debate about how much freedom should be given and how much restrictions should be placed on citizens. But our objective was to analyze how OTT platform is affecting, the creative liberty and how much it is affecting. We also wanted to analyze relationship between creative freedom and OTT. And our third objective was study why OTT is so popular amongst youth and also the current scenario of OTT in India. We are currently living in democratic society where Article 19(1)(a) of Indian Constitution gives us right to freedom of speech and expression. But censorship or restriction of some form was and is an integral part of society, whether Indian or further. And since India is a land of religious and cultural diversity, the issue of content regulation was always a hot take here.
Methodology. This is an ongoing research that uses mixed type methodology, both qualitative and quantitative. We use a questionnaire to collect data in this study. We mainly focus on the primary data gathered through survey conducted and combined with knowledge gained from other research papers. Participants include 100 people between the age group of 16 to 30 who consume content of OTT on daily basis. Current scenario of OTT platform. OTT platforms have come under government organizations across the globe. India too is in far away with self-regulation. We are living in an era of entertainment on the go. With the rise of platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus Hotstar, and Z Prime, to name a few, we have a wide variety of content at our fingertips. However, lately these OTT platforms have been facing the eye of the Indian government on censorship of content. Even though there is no censorship, if any content on the OTT platform contravenes Article 92 of Constitution, the government and the Section 69A of Information Technology Act and the IT Blocking Rules 2009, that is, power to issue directions for blocking public access of any information through any computer resource, has the power to remove such content which is objectionable. In several states, FIRs were recently registered against the makers and actor of Tandem, Amazon Prime Video latest political drama series. This was following complaints against the inappropriate depreciation of the UK police personnel and the character playing the role of Prime Minister in the show. As per PwC report, India currently is the fastest growing market for OTT video, growing at a CAGR of 28.6% and is projected to become the sixth largest OTT market, with revenue touching $2.9 billion by 2024. And now I'd like to conclude. While most of the people, among 57%, agree that OTT platforms offer all types of videos, they also think there should be some kind of moderate censorship, although no one agreed for severe form of censorship. While most people accepted censorship affect the creative freedom of artists, yet only 17% of people agreed it is an obstruction in the part of creative liberty. OTT platform is recent favorite mode of entertainment because of the diverse variety of content it provides. It is most popular between youth because it is them who are always in such new and different.
And through this analysis, we come to an interesting finding that a form of restriction or ban faced by Netflix India is much higher than other OTT platforms. According to a research analysis, of course not ours, it is as high as 40%, much more than other popular OTT platforms in India. But through our analysis, we find that the viewership of Netflix India is as high as 81%. That shows the how much youth is into finding new things and diverse content, or we also come to conclusion that the question of freedom of expression in art is currently receiving a lot of attention in many parts of the world. And lastly, we would like to thank our professor for her guidance, students and faculty members of DME for data, and all the good people who have helped us in our research paper. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Shambhavi and Krishna, for your effort in writing a research paper and presenting so well. So, here, the topic that you have taken for your research is very relevant topic. Here you are focusing on creative freedom, which is a topic of discussion nowadays. Because of OTT platform nowadays, a lot of discussion is going on. How much freedom should be allowed and all these. So very, very relevant study and very futuristic approach you can apply in this research. Okay, so go to your slide of objectives. You have mentioned that you have that in-depth interview of journalists, right?
We provided questionnaire.
Okay. So it was open-ended questionnaire or closed-ended? Open-ended questionnaire. So the data which you received, the primary data which you collected, how you analyze that data?
We have of course taken we
after analyzing, of course, we have taken the approach. When we put a question, people have given the answer how much they have liked it and how much they prefer restriction. It is moderate or severe, or they think the content of OTT platform give rise to sex violence or nudity, or it should be restricted or not.
So it was open-ended and you have taken the opinion of the people and then you have analyzed it. So you must have codified all the data. है ना, आपने डेटा क्लीनिंग किया होगा, फिर डेटा चंकिंग किया होगा, क्लस्टरिंग किया होगा, मेलोइंग किया होगा, फिर इंटरप्रेट किया होगा. ये प्रोसेस आपने सारा किया है.
We interpreted the process.
but that is not shown in the paper. है ना, presentation में आपने वो दिखाया नहीं है. Because you need to identify which codes were there which you used in your research. है ना? This is the review. आप method वाले slide पे आ जाओ. Popularity. How you measure the popularity?
We have
What were the criteria for analyzing popularity of any show? Any specific show you have taken in English?
not a specific show, but we have given the name of current famous OTT platform that is currently used or watched in India. And we have also asked how much they consume it on daily basis.
So don't mention survey if it is open-ended. है ना, open-ended होगा तो फिर आप survey में mostly जो है आपका close-ended question होते हैं, where either it is nominal scale या ordinal scale होता है ना, या फिर ratio होता है, Likert scale होता है जिसपे कि आप satisfaction. Close-ended में क्या होता है ना, multiple choice question होते हैं जिसमें options होते हैं कि आप उसमें से टिक लगाते हो. ओपन-एंडेड में क्या होता है कि क्वेश्चन होते हैं जिसके आंसर आप थ्योरेटिकल लिखते हो, है ना, जिसमें they will mention their opinion, their views, right? तो जब अगर ओपन-एंडेड होगा इसका मतलब है कि वो थ्योरेटिकल होगा, वो डिस्क्रिप्टिव होगा. अगर क्लोज-एंडेड होगा तो वो क्लोज-एंडेड.
Sorry, ma'am. It was close-ended. They were choices given to these
Okay, it was close-ended. है ना, that means it is quantitative research, not qualitative. है ना, quantitative है survey है close-ended questions. And then you have analyzed. आपने abstract में mention किया है interview of journalists. That's why I got confused कि आपने वो open-ended किया है.
Not exactly of journalists. It was actually the questionnaire we asked our faculty members. Not exactly.
Expert interview. लेकिन इंटरव्यू आपने नहीं किया, आपने सर्वे किया है. सर्वे है. अब थोड़ा सा और पढ़ लें और फिर पेपर अपग्रेड करें.
Yes, ma'am. It is an ongoing research.
हाँ.
It has been completed.
So you need to, because topic is very relevant topic, very good topic. So you work on it and it will go for publication. So work on it. Take guidance for all your mentors and your faculty members and then upgrade the paper. So that is my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And अभी मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा जितने भी प्रेजेंटेशन हैं अपनी जो प्रेजेंटेशन है उसको कीप शॉर्ट एंड स्वीट एंड शॉर्ट. So next speaker is Priya Yadav. Her topic is understanding the implications of the AI modeling.
Good afternoon, everyone. The topic of my presentation is understanding the implication of AI modeling. So, as we all know, fashion industry is a fast-changing industry, and during COVID-19, when the resources were limited and the traveling is inaccessible and limited to that time, fashion industry finds the digital technology a new way to grow in the market and to survive in the market. That time, digital models were used in the fashion show, and it expands the domain of digital modeling. I have few examples of digital models and AI models which literally blur the line between the human and AI. My first example is Lil Maikula. She is a creation of Blood, a transmission studio that makes fictional characters who live in the real world. She has 3 million followers on Instagram and she is a robot. My second example is Sudhu. In 2017, photographer James Wilson created Sulu. She starred in all the digital campaigns for the French fashion house in 2019. She is a digital model. And the example of digital model is Zoe DeVille. Technology agency Zoe01 from the Israel created this model, a 22-year-old digital model. In 2019, London Fashion Week, the catwalk is done by the Omni robot along with the human model. In the partnership with House of ICANs, the aim of this collaboration is to present the fashion and technology together. Designer Anifa, during her fashion show, she used these dresses. मैम बेसिकली इसमें जो हमारे ह्यूमन बॉडी का स्ट्रक्चर नहीं था, ये ड्रेसेस थे और ये वॉक कर रहे थे, उसमें ह्यूमन बॉडी का स्ट्रक्चर नहीं था, जैसे हम इमेज में देख सकते हैं हेडलेस मॉडल्स थी. The Fashion Design Council of India, उन्होंने एक वर्चुअल अपना फैशन शो किया था, जिसमें उन्होंने जो ह्यूमन्स थे हमारे ह्यूमन मॉडल को ही यूज़ किया था. बट जैसे कि हम इस फर्स्ट इमेज में देख सकते हैं, इसमें जो हमारे मॉडल्स थे वो अंडरग्राउंड वाटर गई थी एंड उन्होंने वहाँ पे कुछ मूव्स वगैरह किए थे. अंडरग्राउंड वाटर एक पूरा शूट हुआ था एंड इस सीरीज में टोटल 9 ऐसे फैशन वीक्स थे, 9 शोज थे इस सीरीज में. India's first digital model, Neela, which means moon in Tamil language. So, Inika becomes India's first agency to represent a digital model. Ankit Mehta, the CEO of Inega, says Neela would build a road to create the concept of supermodels in India. Now, her look is not revealed yet. Objective of my study is to know the pros and cons of the digital fashion shows. And my second objective is to find out whether AI can replace the human models in the future. So, the pros of digital fashion shows are environment friendly, as we get the sample before the physical outfit. We can know the design, we can know how our outfit is going to present. So, it saves the production time, cost, as well as the wastage of clothes. My second pro is the second advantage of digital fashion show is it reaches to a larger audience. Let Me Fashion Show is the first fashion week to ever stream on an OTT platform, which makes the content available to a larger audience. And Let Me Fashion week का जो live stream हुआ था Jio TV पे. The third advantage is it reduces the stress of scheduling, timing, and sitting at a physical event when you're taking and all. And the fourth advantage is extravagant experience by using the 3D technology. The disadvantages of digital fashion shows are virtual fashion show are most costlier because the technology they use in the fashion show is not available to everyone. And second thing, the digital models are expensive too. Hair and makeup artist who produces as the models are already come up with a makeup touch. And shoot with digital models cannot go with the print. They can go with the digital campaigns, but they cannot be used for the magazine cover or the print ad. Will AI replace the human model? So मैम यहाँ पे 3 लोगों के मैंने दिए हैं, उनका क्या कहना रहा है. एक है डिजाइनर, सेकंड वन इज मेकअप आर्टिस्ट एंड थर्ड वन इज फैशन फोटोग्राफर. सो डिजाइनर मयूर सरोज राजपूत, उन्होंने कहा कि AI models will never compare to real life models, nor they can replace them. Designers like Sabyasachi will prefer real life models to virtual models. Second one is Florian Urel, makeup artist. Customers too will identify with the real life models who will look like them, as the feature and color tone of the digital models are different from the most women. Third, fashion designer Deborah Ratani. Virtual shoots with virtual models are great for digital campaigns. As I already said, the quality quality of the photographs will get destroyed if we use it printed and social media, magazine cover. And then the conclusion is we will witness a blend of digital models, human models, and AI together. That's it.
Thank you, Priya, for the presentation. Your topic is
Understanding the implication of AI.
very, very good topic, very relevant topic as per the changing trends and as per the development, the technological development which is taking place. Very relevant topic. Here I want to give you some suggestions because the topic you have taken very good and the method also you have taken, that is case study method. Content and case study आपने mention किया है इसमें abstract में.
Yes, you can.
Both are the very different methods. Case study, if you have taken a content analysis आप कर रहे हो तो आपने secondary data कहाँ से लिया है, selection criteria क्या है, और आपने कौन सा किस तरह से content को analyze किया है.
Content analysis तो मेरी last slide थी. AI जैसे human model मैंने उसमें use किया था, उसमें मैंने TOI और जो हमारे जैसे magazines वगैरह होती हैं, जो e-papers होते हैं, मैंने उनमें से choose किया है जो हमारे fashion shows में जो लोग involved होते हैं, like makeup artist हो गया, my photographer हो गया.
So you have basically interviews which are already published.
Yes,
that is secondary data which you can take, but you need to analyze those, right? For analyzing those data, you need to select a method. Okay. So how you are selecting, how you are analyzing those data, how you are doing the coding of data, आप उसका behavioral coding कर रहे हो, social coding कर रहे हो, textual coding कर रहे हो, interpretive coding कर रहे हो, that you need to define when you are analyzing those data. Okay? And if you are taking case studies, like you have taken some examples and explained in your research, so the cases which you have taken, so what kind of case you have taken, type of case you need to mention, that it is out here case, it is key case, or it is local knowledge case, and you need to define that, and then approach of case study, that also you need to define. Approach of analyzing your case study. So you are testing a theory, you are building a theory based on the data which you have collected, or it is experimental, it is interpretive. So these are the various ways of analyzing your case study. So that part, that methodology part, that was not clearly mentioned in your presentation. So you need to work on that method, sampling criteria, what kind of sample, what secondary data you have chosen, how you have defined code, how you codify the data, what are the codes you have selected. So these things you need to add, and that will help to enhance the quality of the paper, right? And that will make study more robust. Okay. So these are my suggestions to you. Thank you. Very good effort. Very good topic. I really appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya. And now for the next, second last presentation is Ms. Sukriti Arora. Her topic is Mapping Sexism in Indian Advertising, Quantitative Study. And the last presentation is the Rise of OTT Platform by Ruhi.
Good afternoon, everyone. And the subject of my paper is Mapping Sexism in Indian Advertising, a qualitative study. I understand that sexism has been studied a lot in Indian media. However, there is limited research when it comes to sexism in terms of advertising. And the researches that have been done, as per my ROL that I have studied so far, they have been done in controlled environments. Either they have been done more quantitatively, with focusing more on numbers, focusing more on survey methods. But the qualitative studies also happen in controlled environments, such as people have been shown ads and then their perceptions have been asked about them. So I have done it slightly differently. I would like to first begin with the introduction of my subject. That the primary purpose of any advertisement is to promote the awareness about a product, service, and I'm going to be using product. When I say product, I mean all the services and the ideas also, all the advertisements together. So when I say products, there is the focus of an advertisement is supposed to be on creating brand awareness, creating product awareness, and thereby increasing the sale of it. But what happens is because there is a plethora of advertisements in every single segment, I mean pretty much every single segment, the advertisers try to differentiate themselves, they focus on product differentiation, they focus on enhancing the recall value of their advertisement and on grabbing attention more than on product functionality, and because that is similar mostly throughout all the product categories. So in this quest, what happens is that advertisers often rely on stereotypical images because they are the safer options. Sometimes to include a shock value in their ads, they focus on explicit imagery, which is sexual in nature. Sexual themes are also used quite often, which can lead to prejudices against particular genders. And by gender, we are not talking about specific to men, women, or LGBTQ+, but we are talking about all the genders right now. Sexism also, as I said, that has been studied in advertising before, but the male perspective has not been brought in to the extent that advertisements where the sexism is targeted towards males. So I have tried to be more inclusive in the discussions. Thankfully, the focus group discussion that I conducted, I will first talk about my methodology. The focus group that I included was an equal pool of 10 men and 10 women. There were 2 focus groups, and members were selected from advertising and marketing groups from social media. However, the sample I would still say is convenience and purposive sampling because I did take some help in snowballing the sample, and the age group was selected as 18 to 30 years of age, domicile Delhi NCR, purely for the reasons of convenience, and I admit that this is the limitation of my study. The objective of my research study formed the research questions also. That was to study the existence of sexism in advertising, the existence of it, whether they agree that it is present or not. To study the difference between sexy and sexist narratives. There is a lot of sexual imagery, but not everything is called as sexist. And to identify the patterns of sexism as to what kind of ads are there in which are more sexist in nature, and to suggest ways to curb sexism in Indian advertising. So when I conducted the focus group study, what I focused on was not including myself into the discussion so much as only providing direction if the discussion went haywire. That is what my primary method was. I will straight away come to my findings right now. We have paucity of time and there are findings that I would like to pay attention to. So first of all, when the discussion began, most of the participants, women participants in particular, they immediately agreed that yes, Indian advertising is sexist, whereas most men took some time in agreeing with that once the discussion went forward, once the examples started to be given, because the sexism sometimes is not outrightly felt by the male community. But when the discussion starts to happen, that's when sometimes the realization struck, and that is what I observed during the FDG. Secondly, I'm sorry, this is a little bit stuck right now. In terms of using sexual themes, most participants agreed that ads where both men and women are shown as empowered and willing and enjoying themselves can be termed as sexy and not sexist. When you are distinguishing between the two terms, that is what we came down to, that if both the participants are showcased as willing, that they are equally participating, and that both of them have control over the narrative or whatever is happening to them, then it was considered to be as a sexy ad and not as a sexist advertisement. One of the participants said that ads can be sexy without being sexist, particularly when the nature of product demands it. Especially advertisement examples were given for cotton products, for sexual pleasure products, wherein the nature of the product demands that your ad includes some form of showcasing of sexual themes. However, there were two female participants, both in the same focus group, who contradicted and said that any ad with sexual innuendos ends up objectifying women because of the way the camera works here. The story that is being told may not be sexist in nature, but the way the visual narrative is, the kind of zooming in on particular body parts, the way the camera pans the body from up and down, it becomes objectification. Continuing with it, the participants defined sexism in ads as the portrayal of both men and women as objects of sex. So this is what the definition of sexism came down to vis-a-vis the definition of sexy. Other ads that were called out for being sexist were the ones where stereotypical gender roles were portrayed, and also the ones with gendered comparisons, such as the Imami advertisement of Shah Rukh Khan, wherein the focus is on Mardo Wali cream. These examples were given during the discussion, and Snickers advertisement, wherein Sonam Kapoor is shown as कि जब तुझे भूख लगती है तो तू लड़की बन जाता है. So there is a gender comparison and showcasing one gender as inferior to the other, or not in a positive light. The other participants pointed out that there is lack of representation in LGBTQ plus communities. Particularly, this happens, they get included in the advertisements when there is Pride Month going on, and very rarely there are ads which are portraying all different varieties of love. Most of the love portrayals are also relationship portrayals are straight in nature, homosexual in nature. Sorry, not homosexual in nature. And also another example that was given as a contradiction to this particular trend is what Wix had done when it talked about touch of care with Gauri Saab. That was one exceptional advertisement here. Others agreed, but the reasons that were cited for include the exclusion of LGBTQ community was that they do not form a larger part of the target audience. That yes, they are present, but showcasing them, what the participants argue is that it does not serve the purpose of the advertiser or the ad agency. Moving forward, participants identified, as I said, we will be studying patterns. They identified patterns in terms of product categories particularly, such as household products and beauty products are most likely to showcase gender stereotypes that are tilted more against women. Examples were, of course, the obvious example that was given was Fair and Lovely. Even wheat was given as an example wherein it is showcased that the tagline goes that why use a razor when you are not a man. So these gender comparisons were made, and all these are beauty products setting up exceptional beauty standards for everyone. The group agreed that very few ads have deliberately and overly tried to break stereotypes. So this was, when the discussion was summing up, it came down to whether there has been any change over the years in terms of advertisements, because a lot of examples that were given were the ones of previous decades, or the ones that were recent were again getting more subtle in nature rather than more obvious in their sexism. So the discussion went forward, and what I observed in this study is that yes, there have been efforts, but they have been very limited. One very interesting observation was made by one participant that stereotypes are being broken in some of the advertisements, some of the products, but those products have target audience as educated urban audience and belonging to higher income groups. The example that was given here was in context of brands like Ariel, which are costlier as compared to brands like Ghadi or Rin. And they said that Share the Load is a campaign that has been showcased by this particular section, for this particular section of the society. And the discussions for stereotyping, the discussions against stereotyping are not happening in other stratas. They are focusing on a very elitist group in terms of breaking the stereotypes in advertisements. Male participants also identified that deodorant ads are sexist for showcasing men as consistently needing sex and attention from women. There were also examples that are not included in my presentation, but there were also examples given with respect to ads which showcase any nature of gifting, such as ads during Raksha Bandhan, ads during or showcasing of any Valentine's Day gifts, where men are expected to give something to the woman. So they believe, some of the men believe that this was also sexist in nature, that you are reinforcing the idea that men are supposed to spend on their women, which should actually be done equally from both the sides. The suggestions that came down from the group were that sensitization has to be done at the level of the advertiser, that is the client, as well as the ad makers on gender biases, because even the clients need to accept a different kind of narrative. The inclusion of gender-neutral concepts in advertising was another suggestion, and inclusion of diverse genders in workspace to put checks before ads came out, so that there are different ideas being put forth. If there is a diversity in the workplace, there will be more diversity in terms of the advertisements and less amount of sexism. And this suggestion actually particularly came from somebody who is working in the ad industry, and they were reluctant to put out their names, so I will be keeping them confidential when I publish my paper on it. I understand that the limitation of my paper is that the sample size is small, and because of convenience sampling, I've limited it to Delhi. And the suggestions that have been given were very loose-ended suggestions, and they were not concrete, and implementation is actually dependent upon other groups, and it is something that needs to be worked on further in my paper. Other than this, if there are any other suggestions from your end, I would welcome them. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sukriti. The topic which you have taken for your research, that is the topic I would say is a very common topic, and plethora of research is already available in the published resources. So I would like to know what is the originality of your research? What is the novelty which you brought into the domain of non-research?
Ma'am, as I mentioned earlier, that there is limited research. Yes, there is research on sexism in advertising worldwide, but in Indian advertising, it is still limited. Few recent studies have come out which are overlapping with my own research. How I have tried to make it more original, and I will focus it more, as I've not done right now, but I will focus, I will work on it further, is including the male perspective. How sexism is affecting men and the LGBTQ plus community. We have focused on women a lot in terms of the sexism, but men and LGBTQ plus community has been left out when the discussion happens on sexism.
Yes. So focus group discussion you have taken as a method for analyzing your data, right? So the data, how you codify the data, because that part was not shown in the presentation. Huh? Qualitative data coding, how you did that.
Ma'am, I have not codified my data very concretely. When I conducted the focus group discussion, I took notes on everything that was being said, and there were some obvious statements that were made by the group, by the participants, and I have taken up those statements and brought them into my findings. The statements that I have given here are mostly coming from the participants. I have transcribed them into my language, but I have not codified as such to make it more concrete and make it more reliable. So I can include that as one.
Yes, that part you need to add in your research.
And maybe I will analyze the content
more
again.
valid. Your results will be more valid. Lastly, you have mentioned in your suggestion that very loose suggestions were given. So whatever suggestion you have received, now you need to validate those with further conclusions of the research. If you find it similar, you can cite it so that you can make it more robust. So that is the thing that you can do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ma'am, मैं कैसा पढ़ेंगे बड़ा सिंपल है मैम आपका पूरी चीज़ ठीक है तो दो चीज़ का इसमें चाहिए एक तो ये कि मोस्ट ऑफ द एड्स का प्रमोशन का होता है फॉर द अटेंशन ऑफ द व्यूअर बट कुछ जगह पे मॉडल को इस तरीके से पोर्ट्रेट किया जाता है जहाँ पे नहीं भी करना चाहिए था लाइक मुझे आज तक समझ में नहीं है बिनानी सीमेंट में फीमेल मॉडल क्यों है वो भी सी से बाहर आती है देन मजबूती का जोर बिनानी सी में ये क्या सिर्फ इसलिए दिखाना कि लोगों की अटेंशन जाए क्या आपने इस रिसर्च में क्या इस तरीके के एड्स को भी लिया है या नहीं?
So some of the examples were discussed, similar examples, not this one in particular, but there was an advertisement, very old advertisement from, it was a US advertisement where there is a woman, somebody discussed it, only one person even knew that this ad existed. There is a partially naked woman shown from her backside, and she's curvy, as we call it today, built from where she is supposed to take the load, and that was an ad for a construction company. So imagine the level of sexism that we have come from, and yes, the point that you made is absolutely valid, and there was a discussion included about these aspects as well. So the findings that I have mentioned are only the result of what had been discussed. I've cited some of the examples. This particular example did not come up, but the other one very similar to it did come up. And yes, sexism to that extent exists, and we don't realize it. It is so subtle that we don't even pay attention. Okay, it happened. It went off. It went off right from our eyes. One more scope of the advertisement that I have not focused on yet is because it will take too much of time and effort on my part to conduct it. I will need more help on that. Is the impact of these advertisements, which is more subtle, because of third-person effect being coming into advertisements. So advertisements are a classic example of third-person effect from psychology. That we believe that media messages are affecting the other, but they don't affect us. That is the limitation, and I will need to maybe do interdisciplinary research with somebody else from the psychology background to judge the impact of these kind of advertisements.
Thank you, ma'am.
Had a question.
She had a question on it.
Do you think homophobia has something to do with the less representation of LGBTQI community in advertisements, that it will bring the sales down?
I don't believe that it is actually homophobia that is the reason for limited representation of. Hello? Sorry. I don't believe that homophobia is the primary reason. What the reason is that advertisers do not feel that this would resonate with their target audience so much. However, I listened to one of the discussions in ICAN where Dr. Rehan pointed out that this is a new study that has come out by Kanta Media, where they have talked about that progressive advertisement, wherever there are progressive portrayals, are actually improving brands' images. But this is an area which advertisers need to still focus on. Homophobia is something which is very personalized to people, that we don't want anybody gay or anybody lesbian in our own families. But when it comes to the advertiser's perspective, it is purely a business decision. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, the last presentation is Jyoti Mishra and Sakshi Mishra. Her topic is the rise of OTT play.
Hello, good afternoon to all of you. Today I, Sakshi Mishra and Jyoti Mishra from Agency Department are going to present a research work presentation in front of you all. Our topic is the rise of OTT platform. So, our first question came that what are OTT platforms? So, OTT, which stands for over-the-top platform, refers to any streaming service that provides content over the internet, which actually delivers the content over the internet. So now, if I talk about the objectives of our research work, so our objective was basically to understand various factors which encourage people of all age groups, not only a specific one but all age groups, to watch video on demand on various OTT platforms such as Netflix, Hotstar, Amazon Prime, Hulu, etc. Now, if I talk about the evolution of OTT platform in India, which Jyoti is going to explain.
So, with the advancement of technology and emergence of digital era on-demand video streaming, services have snowballed in recent years. With the COVID-19 outbreak and the ensuing shutdown of OTT services among Indian customers have increased. Unlike most businesses, the COVID-19 outbreak changed the media and entertainment industry forever. In the previous decade saw the COVID-19 outbreak changed the media and the entertainment industry forever. If the previous decade saw the rise of movie theater 2020 proved to the era of OTT culture, with the cineplexes and movies theater closing for the most of the years. The pandemic caused widespread devastation throughout the world.
So our research methodology is like field of the study, the survey responses which we collected from our OTT viewers, which were our batchmates of TME in Delhi city. And the technique for structuring how the research project will be conducted is known as research design. The study is both descriptive and qualitative in nature and describes the attitude of OTT viewers. The population were among the response were 34 and all responses were in favor of our topic like OTT platforms. Now, if I talk about major OTT players in India, there are various OTT platforms which offer their services in Indian market. Some of the important ones are Disney plus Hotstar, Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, etc. Now, if I talk about factors influencing growth of OTT, then the awareness and use of technology has tremendously influenced the growth of sectors like e-commerce, digital marketing, online education on demand, internet, etc., entertainment, etc. Some of the important factors have contributed to the rise in the OTT platforms. With the rapid advancement in technology, penetration of smartphones, and increase in level of affordable internet facilities resulted in the rise of OTT media services. OTT platform gives freedom to their users to watch TV, movies, etc. at their own convenience. The study was conducted to find out the factor influencing consumers' choice of streaming OTT platforms. Moving further, we have also collected some data analysis which Jyoti is going to explain us.
And now I'm going to tell data collection and analysis, which we are done in our research work. So the first questionnaire was which OTT has gained the major audience. So Netflix gained the major. Its percentage is 82.4% and Food 11.8%, C5 11.8% and Prime 38.2%. Then our second questionnaire was do they edit the content provided by OTT platforms are good? So 94.1% yes. Third questionnaire, what do they think is better? So OTT platforms. And how much time do they spend in watching OTT? So the fourth questionnaire is according to you, according to them, which is the most used OTT platforms in India? So the major name is Netflix and Hotstar.
Now, if we come to our conclusion part of our research work, then 82.4 audience watches Netflix out of 100. 38.2% audience are saying they watch shows on OTT platforms due to no censorship. 52.9% stream OTT or shows 3 or times a week. According to 11.8% people, TV channels are lagging behind OTT platforms. So these are some OTT platforms. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. A very good effort. So I would like to give you some suggestions. So here your objective is factors which is influencing growth of OTT, right? So you need to find out what are the factors. So at your conclusion, you have not clearly mentioned how you have found out all these factors, which were the factors which were most influential, which is affecting the people's perspective, their views, why they should watch, what they should watch. So that factor you need to identify by mapping your objective as per the objective which you have taken, and accordingly you get a questionnaire. Whatever you have designed, the items which you have taken into the questionnaire, and then conclusion. So mapping of your objective, your research tools, the method you have taken, and finally the final result. So that part should be very clear. Very clear, right? So you need to enhance that.
Okay, ma'am.
Very good effort.
Thank you.
So this is the end of technical session 8. As I announced the result of best paper, technical session 7, the previous one. The artificial intelligence as a weapon to fight against fake news. A study, Rohan Singh, the student of Amity School of Communication, Amity University, UP. So, good morning to the ma'am. उनके कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट को पेपर मिला. I request Ruhi ma'am to say a few words.
Thank you so much. It is I'm truly honored, and it is a pleasure for me to be here and be the part of this international conference. And it was honestly a very good session where I came to know about the area where you are working, all the areas which you have chosen for your research. All these areas are very relevant as per the changing trends, as the society is changing, our consumption pattern of media is changing. Accordingly, you people have selected some papers are very futuristic approach, how we should take it, how we can contribute something in the domain of knowledge, how we can generate new theories. So what I found that there is a need to enhance the paper so that we can make it more robust and it will be published. So as a students, those who have contributed your work and how you have worked on the paper, that is extremely good, a very good research culture I can see, which is here in the DMA Media School, and the way the students are working, the way you are writing research paper, which is really appreciable. So thank you so much for inviting me, giving me the opportunity to be here, interact with you, and become a part of this international conference. I'm truly honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your advice, and I request Professor Sushmita Bala, Head Media School. Ma'am.
Thank you to everyone for presentation. Basically, films are close to our heart. We all watch films, we enjoy watching them, and in today's session, the researchers raised issues as to how film can be used to creating onwards on social issues, including LGBTQ. Films can also be used to raise social political issues like the film Kashmir Files, Sheetal present. And talking about OTT content, the issue of censorship and creative freedom becomes important as Sham will be present a paper about this particular aspect. प्रिया ने जो टॉपिक लिया था वो काफ़ी न्यू था और जो उसको डिफरेंट टॉपिक की तरह बोल सकते हैं कि दैट वाज बिल्कुल डिफरेंट टॉपिक एंड गुड एफर्ट्स ऑफ ज्योति एंड साक्षी. Mr. Pramod Pandey ने जो पेपर प्रेजेंट किया दैट वाज वेरी नाइस पेपर एंड इससे पहले सुप्रीति ने भी एक पेपर प्रेजेंट किया था with different topic, with different aspect. जो हम लोग सिर्फ सोचते हैं उसको एनालाइज नहीं करते हैं, जस्ट देख लिया रिजल्ट आ रहे हैं, क्यों आ रहे हैं, क्या है, उसको एनालाइज नहीं करना है, उनके बारे में कोई ऐसा व्यू पॉइंट नहीं बनता है क्योंकि वो ट्रेंड है कि एडवर्टिजमेंट में फीमेल को दिखाना है जस्ट फॉर कि शायद उनकी व्यूवरशिप बढ़ जाएगी या एडवर्टिजमेंट ज़्यादा सर्कुलेट हो जाएगा, सर्कुलेशन में ज़्यादा। बट ये वाकई में उसको एनालाइज करने का समय है, और ख़ास तौर से जिस तरह से सुकृति ने उठाया पॉइंट को, उसको और क्रिटिकली एनालाइज किया जा सकता है और उसको क्रिटिकली देखा जा सकता है। एंड मेरे ख्याल से मैम ने जो सजेशन दिए हैं वो कैलकुलेट करेंगे तो बेटर उसको और बनाया जा सकता है। सो थैंक यू रूही मैम फॉर सजेशन जो आपने दिए इन लोगों को, और सभी को कुछ ना कुछ सजेशन मैम ने दिए हैं। तो जो अभी फर्स्ट ईयर के स्टूडेंट हैं खास तौर से, उनको उसको सीरियसली जब आप पेपर लिख रहे हैं, अभी सबके पेपर लिखे नहीं गए हैं, तो पेपर में आप उन सजेशन को कैलकुलेट करिए और बेटर पेपर बनाने की कोशिश करिए। इट्स योर फर्स्ट ईयर, ग्रेजुअली सेकेंड ईयर थर्ड ईयर में जब तक आप आएंगे आफ्टर रिसर्च मेथडोलॉजी पढ़ के, क्योंकि मीडिया रिसर्च पेपर है आपके पास, तो पढ़ के जब आएंगे तो ऑब्वियसली आपका पेपर बहुत अच्छा बनेगा। बट इट्स अ गुड टू सी यू एज ए पेपर प्रेजेंटर। थैंक यू, थैंक्स टू ऑल ऑफ यू।
My foremost and heartfelt thanks to the session expert to share her valuable insights for today's technical session. Sincere thanks to the management of BME, Aman Sahani, Vice Chairman, Justice Thakur, State Director General BME, Professor Dr. Ravikant Swami, Director BME, for their support in every endeavor that is being taken up by DME Media School. Heartfelt thanks to the Dean DME Media School, Professor Dr. Ruhi Saxena, Head DME Media School, Professor Dr. Susmita Bala, for their motivation in planning, executing and organizing the flagship events of Media School. Thanks to Dr. Manasvi Maheshwari, Associate Professor and Associate Convener of ICAN 5 for the overall coordination for the event. Thanks to Samantha Sathidas and Vishal Sahai, Assistant Professors, and Yogesh Sharma, Faculty at DME Media School for their support in production and digital team. Thanks to Dr. Mandeep Kaur, Associate Professor and Academic Coordinator of DME Media School, and Pramod Kumar Pandey, Assistant Professor, for their efforts in supporting ICAN 5. Thanks to Shruti B.S., Assistant Professor of Media School. She has supported ICAN as a convener for technical team, cultural team, and student coordination team. Mohammad Kamil and Sukriti Arora, Assistant Professors, for newsletter, press briefing, and media coordination support. Dr. Ritika Saxena, Assistant Professor, for designing and creative support. Saima Parvez and Dr. Sumitra for support in the execution of social media handles during various sessions of ICAN. I also like to thank Dr. Saxena, Anmol Mehta, Tulika Arora, Ian Anand, Abhishek Yadav, and Jagan for administrator and logistics support. Student convener Priya Yadav for her consistent efforts in ICAN 5. All student coordinators from newsletter, production, digital operations, cultural, hospitality, and anchoring teams for their consistent efforts for the conference. Thanks to all the researchers, participants who have sent their full research papers for the media conference, and participants of other various sessions. Special thanks to our conference partners, media partners, cultural partners, international partners.
we have one technical session and one panel discussion. The technical session is on the topic implications of OTT content, binge watching and censorship issues. The session will be from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Indian Standard Time. The panel discussion will be on the topic construction of gender narrative on OTT, visualizing the future of content. The session will be from 4:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Stay tuned for more fruitful sessions. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Now I would like for everyone to stay back for a photograph. Thanks for today.
मार्कशीट थोड़ा इधर
इस साइड आ जाए, इधर कम है, इधर आ, मार्कशीट
इधर
मिलान से
दोनों पॉइंट